Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today we're talking to Boyd Sleator from Humanism, Northern Ireland, and it's genuinely one of the most entertaining conversations I've had in quite a while. We talk all about his work with Humanism, Northern Ireland, about religion, and just about humanism in general and where it came from, where he found it, and his interpretation of it. If you enjoy the show, you can share us on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, text message, Telegram, whatever you fancy. So without further ado, here's the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you on.
Cheers.
So we're here to talk about humanism. So what first brought you to humanism? Like, where did you find it?
The honest answer? I can't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember when I first thought I'm a humanist. I don't remember where I first even came across the term. I don't remember. You know, I'm second generation atheist. My mother's an atheist. You know, she never sort of spoke about her atheism, or was very sort of like, you have to go and do this or that or the other. You know, I came to my idea of being an atheist myself over, you know, a number of years of never really believing in any of the sort of Christian gods or the religious gods, and sort of thinking, no, there must be something else out there, to going, oh, wait a minute, no, there's not. You read a bit, you sort of educate yourself a bit, and you realize, no, this is not for me, this is not what I believe, there's no evidence for it, therefore I'm not going to believe it. And I, for many years, have been a skeptic, and not just a skeptic in the sense of I'm skeptical about things, but actually sort of going out and sort of saying, no, this is wrong, like the likes of homeopathy, the sort of psychic mediums conning people out of money. You know, that
homeopathy has an
placebo.
odd, I was about to say the placebo can be incredibly powerful.
Oh yeah, placebos are incredibly powerful, but it's when you have people flogging it as cures for, you know, don't, you know, use this instead of malaria medicine for when you're on holiday. Like, no, if you got maybe a sore head, you know, once in a while, and it works for you, by all means. Same as acupuncture, Reiki, you know, all those things have a placebo effect. Are they doing anything, you know, medically? You know, is there a medical effect on them? I don't know. It seems through all the research done that there isn't. Anyhow, that would have been, you know, I was a skeptic. I was living in Manchester for 12 years, and during that time, you know, I was quite involved in sort of, I was, you know, basically saying, it was more so around psychic mediums and the nonsense that they were spouting. One in particular, Sally Morgan, Psychic Sally, who did an event in Dublin, and the people who were in the back row ended up hearing somebody calling out the commands to her before she was saying them on stage, and there was a whole kick-off about it. You know, did this really happen or didn't it? And I rang the theatre straight away and was like, tell me what happened. They went, oh, they bring all their own people, they bring all their own stage crew. And she was trying to say that it was people from the theatre that were in this room. So I was able to get that information and then sent it on to, I think it was like Simon Singh and stuff from that, from Daily Mail. And so I've always been involved in doing things like that. You know, I wrote a little bit for Coffee Loving Skeptic, and you know, involved in sort of promoting science events, public understanding of science events. And I guess, you know, at that stage, you know, through all these years of doing this, it's sort of always been following what, at that point, the British Humanists Association were doing, and who are now Humanists UK after their rebrand a few weeks ago. We have to make sure not to say, don't say British Humanists. Okay. So Humanists UK, you have to drill that into yourselves. Anyhow, so yeah, it always followed what they were doing. I came back to Northern Ireland around about 4 years ago. And at that point, I saw a gap in the market to do some public understanding of science events. And I brought Richard Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss to Belfast. I actually ended up bringing them twice over to Northern Ireland, once for a screening of The Unbelievers, where they did a Q&A afterwards, and then once for the actual Science Festival event. Okay. And after the first screening of The Unbelievers, which it sold out, we put it on in the Strand Cinema. And the Strand Cinema were also having Van Morrison play a few weeks later, a few weeks earlier, or something like that. The tickets for our event sold out in 7 minutes. We had to put another showing on, and they sold out in something like 8 minutes.
Wow.
And Van Morrison was still selling. I don't think it sold out at all. So it was quite funny when the stand called me, like, your tickets have sold out quicker than Van Morrison. And then they're like, I was trying to get through to the cinema because they went on sale at 9 o'clock in the morning, and a couple of minutes later there's people on Facebook saying there's no tickets left. And I was like, this can't be right.
You were like, the website's crashed.
Yeah. So I'm ringing. It was just totally engaged, and eventually I get through to them and they're like, what have you done there? So there's only 2 people here at the cinema. I was like, I told you, like, there's a queue of people outside the door and the phones are going. I'm like, brilliant. So yeah, brilliant. So basically at that, all of the atheists, humanists, agnostics came out of the woodwork in Northern Ireland, and they came to the event. They really enjoyed it, and afterwards they came. Well, a few of them came to me who I'd sort of become friends with, and said, "Look, we want something more. We want something more for Northern Ireland, for the people who are non-religious." And I'd say, "Well, they're not humanist organisations." And there was one humanist organisation. Actually, there's 2 in Northern Ireland, and very Belfast-centric, but not very proactive. So I met with myself, and it was 7 others at that point who met and got together and said, okay, well, what will we do? And we decided that we would set up an organisation to, sort of promote the ideas of the non-religious, and also to take on some things which we would have seen as religious privilege in Northern Ireland. Okay. So we looked at different names and decided that in order to be able to be represented correctly, we had to go under the name of Atheist Northern Ireland. We sort of thought, well, we'd be Skeptical Northern Ireland or Secular Northern Ireland or whatever it may be, but those things are not protected beliefs, whereas atheism is. Okay. So we said, okay, we'll set up as Atheist Northern Ireland. 7 of us did that, and we started looking at the things that we wanted to make a change with, and one of the main things was the religious education curriculum in Northern Ireland. So we thought, okay, there's something to work on. I sort of volunteered myself full time to the role as chair and working on it for about 10 months. And at the end of the 10 months, my now ex-partner got pregnant with twins. And I decided I need to go back to work and get a job again. And at that point, Andrew Copson from Humanist UK was in Northern Ireland. We met. We spoke about what Atheist Northern Ireland were doing and what other organisations in Northern Ireland were not doing. And he had said, well, we really like what you're doing. We're probably going to set up a section here in Northern Ireland. In actual fact, we are going to set up a section. We want you to apply for a job. Okay. And the rest is sort of history then, I'm now at the stage that I am now, working with them for about 16 months, and it's all been really positive, really good.
Well, I'm glad everything's going well for you.
Yeah.
What is it that you think appeals to you about humanism more than, so you could just say that you were an atheist?
Yeah.
There's lots of other maybe smaller sort of idealistic, rational, sort of not human based, but that sort of.
Oh, I get that. I think for a lot of these terms and definitions, they're not mutually exclusive. So I am a secularist. I am a skeptic. I am an atheist. I am an agnostic. And I am also a humanist. So I say all these things, and then I'm going to say afterwards, I don't really like labeling myself. I don't like labeling myself, but I am this.
Do you get that all on a business card?
Yeah, no, I can go front and back. I can do that. But yeah, I'm all of these things, and yet the term humanist probably sums it up better than all of them. If you think about it, when it comes to my atheism, I am atheistic about all man-made religions. I fail to see any evidence in any of them, therefore I'm an atheist. I'm an agnostic about how the universe came into existence. Okay. Because the honest answer, whether you're religious or not, is
there's 7.5 billion agnostics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The honest answer is nobody knows. So I'm agnostic about how the universe came into existence, and a lot of the religious organisations and religious people, they are making truth claims, which they shouldn't be. And I always say to them, look, if you and I are both being honest, neither of us know how the universe came into existence. So You know, that's my standpoint. So none of these things are really mutually exclusive. I guess what makes humanism a good definition for me is because it's a philosophical worldview which doesn't make any claims to truth, and also doesn't rely on deities or gods or goddesses. And it's very much all about reason, evidence, facts, empathy, compassion, and I think the most important thing is that you make your own truth to a certain extent. You look at the facts yourself, and you come to a free thinking, using free thought and using reason. You come to your own conclusion on what is right or wrong when it comes to your sort of moral outlook. So I feel that is that's right for me, because for many years, I would always have difficulty in saying, well, people might say this is not a policy that we have, but if somebody would say to me, is prostitution right? I would say, well, as long as it's the person who's doing it is making the decision themselves to do it, and has come to a rational decision to do it, well, who am I to say that they're wrong for doing it? And some friends of mine would be like, oh, that's totally wrong, and it's like, well,
the Green Party got quite a bit of flack for even suggesting it should be decriminalised.
Yes, and that's a fact. It should be. That would be my point of view. I get one. For policy wise, with Northern Ireland Humanists and Humanists UK, we look for a total decriminalisation in the abortion laws. We look for equality in marriage. We look for decriminalisation, or at least laws to allow people to have assisted suicides. So there are lots of those topics are quite controversial. And then you have things which, for me is personal belief. Somebody might say to me, oh, there's an organisation called Progressive NI Politics, and they put up a post about, we should decriminalise cannabis, and it should be decriminalised, and we should work on it. I was like, of course it should be decriminalised. That's not a progressive thought. Here's a progressive thought for you: decriminalise all drugs, all of them. And they're like, oh, baby steps, one step at a time. You're like, well, wait a minute. You're saying something that's totally obvious. Other countries have done, decriminalise everything. We should not be policing people's bodies. We should be educating them. And then if they decide they want to use X, Y, or Z as a drug, it's totally up to them. So that would be my personal standpoint on that.
Based on Portugal's model?
Yes, I think that is Portugal's model, although I think Portugal still has even those sort of harder end drugs, still illegal. I don't think heroin's decriminalised.
Okay.
I would honestly go for total decriminalisation.
No,
there was one study done on, I think it was on Manchester, and the amount of theft and shoplifting that happens and has had to be paid out by insurance companies due to people being addicted to those really hard drugs, heroin, crack cocaine, stuff like that. And the figure was phenomenal. It was massive. And I think it was a couple of people at the council had come up with this idea of having like a heroin booth where people who are heroin addicts could get heroin for free. And they would go also on like kind of rehabilitation. First of all, giving them drugs which are not contaminated with poisons, or you have them dying on the street. Giving them a fair dosage, which means that they're not overdosing on the street, but also giving it for free, so as they're not going to spend them whatever they get in their sort of dole on drugs, and also not going out and stealing to get drugs, which means that there's less being paid out by insurance companies. I thought that's a really good idea. Everybody was like, no, can't be doing that. Can't be doing anything that seems a little bit progressive,
No, definitely not.
And the thought behind the nose on things like that is that tomorrow everybody's going to become a drug addict. And it's really, I've never taken heroin. If it was legal tomorrow, I still wouldn't take heroin. It's like,
I don't have this like overwhelming urge that's only being held back by the legal system.
Exactly. It's like equality in marriage. It's not as if if tomorrow I'm a straight male. If we had equality in marriage tomorrow, I'm not going to go out and marry my best mate. It's just not going to happen. It's not. I don't know what some of our political parties think, and some of the conservative Christians think is going to happen. if we have legally recognised marriage, you know.
Talking, sorry, of slightly irrational views from conservative Christians.
Yes.
The Reverend David McElveen made some rather interesting comments that I'm sure you're probably familiar with.
Yeah.
That about
the book
that you sent to Northern Irish schools.
Yeah.
I think he said that there should be a clear barrier between the message of humanism and impressionable minds. Yeah, I can't keep a straight face. That children were far too young to make the decision, and that it was an exploitation of young people to try and indoctrinate them into a view that many people in Northern Ireland would reject.
Yes.
And I honestly thought that was potentially the most ironic thing I'd read in months.
It's exactly how we actually phrased it in the post that we put out, because we shared the article and said, is he trying to be ironic? This is the most ironic thing we've ever heard. And it's funny because one of the things is that when we go in and we not only do we send that book out to schools, but we also have school speakers who can go in and talk to kids. And it's generally, we have different topics that the teachers can choose them to talk about. So one is meaning and happiness. We have talks about, for older children, there's stuff about abortion if you wanted to talk about that. We do the whole philosophy and ethics side of stuff. And really it's all around ethics, humanity, human rights, stuff like that. But for younger children, it's all about how can you have a nice life and how can you have a happy life, and what's meaningful for you. And our whole approach to it all the time is not to say this is what you should be thinking, but to be saying this is what we think. And this is how I, as a humanist, go about living my life. And it's also about trying to get children to think critically. What we truly believe is that if you've decided that you are a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or a Hindu or even a humanist, we want you to have come to that decision yourself. So we want to give you the tools to be able to think critically about what you're doing in order for you to make your mind up. Not your teacher making your mind up for you, not your mom or dad making your mind up for you, but you coming to that decision. And really with young children, like primary 1 through to primary sort of even 5, 6 and 7, they start to become a little bit more sort of understanding about what's going on. It's all about just talking to kids about bullying, and how it's wrong and how it's not nice for other people, and getting them to actually, I did one primary school where we spoke about bullying and spoke about its effects and spoke about to the classroom about are the children here who think maybe they are the bullies, and they and actually having discussions with them about their how that affects maybe their other friends in the class, and we get lots of really good feedback from those talks, where kids come together and work together in little groups and maybe work with other kids in the groups who they wouldn't always get on with, and they start to realise that there's no real need for them to be bullies. They can have a happy life without being bullies, and working together and talking together. So it's very much about that, about bringing people together and getting them to think critically. The brilliant thing about people like Reverend McElveen, DUP at times, and other those semi-fundamental Christian organisations or evangelical organisations is that they are the best form of advertising for us. They are amazing. When we sent that book out to all those schools, it was also sent out to schools in England, and the papers and news agencies in England that picked up on that book going out were a couple of local newspapers. We had it in all the major newspapers, and it's like, you say anything to do with non-religious belief, atheism, humanism in Northern Ireland, and you get somebody like Reverend McElveen being our PR agency for us, and the Belfast Telegraph, they just pick up on that and just stick out. The thing that got me about the Belfast Telegraph and that, it didn't annoy me at all, because I just thought this is great for us. We had more people starting to like our Facebook page, became supporters, really endorsing the fact that what we were doing. We had, in actual fact, when that book went out, my plan of attack was to contact the integrated schools and say, look, we have the school speakers, we've sent the book out, could we maybe come in and talk to your pupils. I contacted a few of the integrated schools and they were a little bit sort of, don't want to rock the boat. I did William Crawley's talk back, discussed it on there, and the next day I started getting contacted by Catholic schools. Will you come in and speak to our sixth years? And it's just like,
that's really interesting.
Really strange. Like, struck me. It's just like, well, I didn't expect that. And I think more they sort of realized. Other schools were sort of thinking about it in terms of, what will our parents think? They were thinking about it when they heard it. Well, we actually have religion and philosophy parts of their A-level course, and they were like, you sound like an amicable person, somebody who will come in and will debate with the children, but won't say, they're being stupid, which you do tend to find within the atheist sort of groups and organizations, that they're like, all Christians are daft, and they're idiots, so there's something wrong with them mentally. Like, as non-religious people, I don't think we can take that. You can't be, all you're going to do is alienate the vast majority of society,
Yeah.
Whereas what
especially
we want,
in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, especially in Northern Ireland. And the other thing is, what we want is a secular Northern Ireland, one where all beliefs, have their place, but none dominate over each other, and none dominate what our government says or thinks. But yeah, as far as Reverend McElveen goes, I thank him a lot for all the great advertising he does for us.
There was actually something else he said, and something you kind of touched on there as well, that he said that humanism is anti-God and therefore anti-Christian. Now, given that it's all about rationality, critical thinking, one of my best friends is Christian. He's actually the co-founder of the site and does a bit of work helping me with production for the podcast.
Yeah.
And he's potentially one of the most skeptical and rational people I know. Really, like, that might sound odd, but so do you think that religion is necessarily incompatible with humanism? And also there's a tendency, I think, for religion to be equated with people's ridiculousness. I think that, and South Park actually put it perfectly when they did a 2-part episode on it, where they had one of the kids go to the future, and all religion had been abolished and everyone was just fighting over what to call their atheist group. Okay, there was massive war between two groups of humans and a group of intelligent otters over what to call their it was the United Atheist Alliance.
I've seen that, yeah.
So do you think that it's incompatible with religion?
I'm not sure what way you're talking about when you say incompatible. So, for example, technically speaking, you can't be a Christian humanist. Now, I'm not going to say to somebody, no, you can't define yourself as a Christian humanist, because I don't believe in defining other people. Define yourself, don't define other people. Saying that, within humanism, at least the definition that we give as Humanist UK, it's living a life without the deities. It's living a life without the supernatural, or calling on the supernatural for answers to questions that you can't get. As far as that goes, no, I can't really see you being a Christian and a humanist. Saying that, I come today from a meeting with the Interfaith Forum. I'm an elected member of the Interfaith Forum. So there's ourselves as humanists, there's people from the Christian church, the Jewish community, the Sikh community, the Buddhist community, the Baha'i community. So as far as being able to interact and run events and speak with and have friends who are of faith, no, we can be compatible, very much so. Today we were talking about Interfaith Week, which happens in November, and is there some way that we as the Northern Ireland Humanists can organise an event to put into Interfaith Week? So religious people and non-religious people can interact fine. They are compatible. You talk about your friend being a skeptic and being Christian. A very close relative to me, two of our closest sort of family members are my aunt and uncle, and both are born again Christians. And my uncle is one of the most intelligent, skeptical, very, very intelligent man, like super intelligent, probably the most intelligent person I know. And we talked about James Randi. Do you know who James Randi is? The Amazing Randi. He was a magician who also then he's a very sort of, does lots of talks about skepticism and again about homeopathy, next a load of homeopathic pills. And
a lot of magicians seem to go in that direction, because Penn from Penn and Teller, it's also...
He did that, and so did Houdini. You know, a lot of them do. And anyhow, we were talking about James Randi and all the stuff he was doing, and we were talking about Uri Geller, because James Randi was always debunking Uri Geller, and we were talking about that, and he was like, I don't know how people, he was talking about, I don't know how people believe this nonsense. You know, obviously there's no evidence for it, and he's talking about this, and in the back of my head I'm thinking, you're a believer in a God you have no evidence for. So I get what you're coming from, and saying with your friend and how he's being skeptical, and I guess that his answer to that, about his skepticism and his belief in God, although I've learned now to, years ago I would have questioned my uncle about it, and you could see it made him uncomfortable, so I stopped doing it. I just don't feel there's any need to do it, because I understand what his answer is going to be. It's faith. I have faith in it. He doesn't put it down to being the same thing as like spoon bending or somebody believing in psychics. It's totally different. For me, it's not. For me, it's just isn't. I've been called out on it a couple of times where I've sort of, I probably shouldn't, but I have done, where I've sort of said, well, I give the same sort of evidence that God exists as to Santa Claus existing, or to the tooth fairy existing, or there's that the idea of a tiny teapot that's circling the earth, but we don't have a telescope powerful enough to see it, but it's there.
Well, if I'm gonna be play real devil's advocate, I would say that technically, in the eyes of Christianity, at least 1/3 of God is provable that they existed, and that Jesus was a real person.
But that doesn't prove that God
exists. I know, but
you know what I mean? and then you have, and that's a whole other argument. This is one of the things, as a teenager growing up and having these arguments with people about the existence of God, it was all well and good. I don't really have the time to argue about whether there's a God or not anymore. It's a pointless argument, because I can't prove that there is one, and they can't prove that there isn't one. So to me it seems like a silly argument, and one that all it does is gets people's backs up. Whereas there are arguments that you can have which are to do with religion, with maybe to do with the human rights aspect of it. What they feel is right, like is being gay a sin? Is by telling people who are gay, you're a sinner, you're going to hell. Is that right? Is that detrimental to them? How does that affect them? They affect the types of the likes of the abortion lobby, who always come from a Christian narrative and this Christian perspective, and you see when they're out, marching against it, it's all Jesus quotes and and Bible quotes and pictures of him. There's pictures. The South of Ireland one, I was really confused. It's like people with placards with like Hitler on them and like flames in the background, and there's no writing on it, so you don't really. I'm sort of thinking, I don't know what that means. But then there was one that said "you too," as in the letter U and the number 2 could have been aborted. Sort of saying you too could have been aborted. But I was thinking this was really funny. I was actually thinking,
a whole lot of punk rock fans going,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, yes, they could have been. We never had to deal with Bono ever again. So yeah, it was. Their argument doesn't necessarily have to be a religious argument. They believe life is life as soon as that egg is fertilized and is working away in the mother's uterus, so that's, it's troublesome that their arguments, and they come from that perspective, and those religious perspectives are I think detrimental with regards to the health and well-being of women in Northern Ireland, without having some abortion laws changed, detrimental to people from the gay community.
Thankfully amazingly, thanks to the Conservative Party, we're actually getting there.
Yeah, we are slowly but surely, yeah. But those arguments are to be had about certain texts, about how that's filled out by religious people. The argument for God, I mean, it's too easy to win as well. So.
Well,
it's actually impossible to win, but
yeah, I've had the argument many times.
Yeah,
but not that I've come to a definite conclusion on it yet. But one thing I actually wanted to ask you was so the humanism, for people who maybe don't know, was born out of the Renaissance and sort of the rational and logical thinking that came with it. And I've heard quite a lot of people talk about that we're living through a second Renaissance or like a digital Renaissance. And I wondered like what you thought of that suggestion and whether you think that to an extent explains the sort of newfound popularity in humanism.
Where did you get the idea that there's a newfound popularity?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel that I've seen it more.
Yeah,
and maybe that's just the media I'm consuming, but maybe like I just feel like the idea is more out there than it used to be.
Are we talking from a Northern Ireland perspective here, or just
generally?
Okay, so there are a couple of things to say about that. So with regards to humanism in the UK, it's sort of born out of the Ethical Society, which still exists. One of the oldest sort of ethical society buildings that still exists is in London at the minute, Conway Hall. And they actually originally were, I think, utilitarian church. They were a very open sort of church that sort of became rational thinkers that went, okay, let's skip the church bit and just become an ethical thinkers union.
People like a church.
Yeah, they did. And it's a great organisation. I did a couple of talks there. They were really good. So humanism has been around in the United Kingdom anyhow as organised humanism for around about 120 years. And with regards to how it's maybe being seen more by other people, it's becoming sort of more evident that it's there in Northern Ireland anyhow. We have really been pushing it for the last 16 months. We've taken the court cases. We're just about to start another campaign. We're very open about when the political parties are running for election, as they do every 3 months now here in Northern Ireland. We ask them a set of questions on topics that we believe are something that humanists want to know about, whether that's abortion rights, equality in rights, the equality of teachers, because teachers can be sort of discriminated against if they're from different religious bodies. So we ask all these questions and we get very full answers, and then we do a very simple table and we stick it up and we say, this is what the political parties think about X, Y, and Z. And as a charity, we can't sort of say, oh, look at what this organisation is saying, which is really wrong. We can't influence voters. But we can say, well, this is how they think about these certain topics. Or we can say, equality in marriage is a very big thing for us, and the DUP are just totally against it. We can say that, but we can't tell voters to vote in a certain fashion.
Well, I guess that kind of comes back to the whole facts have a liberal bias accusation.
Yes, it does. it would do. And so what we do is we do these things, and these are things that maybe a lot of other organisations don't do, and people pick up on it and share it. So a lot of our stuff gets shared, widely. And the other thing is that around about, I think it must be about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe longer actually, Andrew Copson became the CEO or the CEO of British Humanist Association at that time, now Humanist UK. And I think there was maybe only 3 or 4 people working in the organisation at that point, and today there's 26, I think. He's built up an amazing team there. There's a development officer here in Northern Ireland who's myself, and we have a development officer in Wales. We have a public affairs team, which is the team that deals with all of our sort of cases that we go to court with, and what our campaigns are and how we campaign on those, and The guy that heads that up now is a guy called Richie Thompson, who's amazing. And I'm in contact with him every week, discussing how we move forward with campaigns and what we do here. And he's got a team of people working with him in that. And then we have the public services, which is headed by a guy called Teddy Proud. The public services are our ceremonies, that's weddings, naming ceremonies, funerals. Our pastoral care, which is like, I want to say it's like chaplaincy, but it's nothing like chaplaincy, but we would be part of the chaplaincy team if we're in Queens, we're in the city hospital, we're moving forward to get into Maghaberry prison, and that's where we offer an ear to people, where we listen to people, who may have issues and who want to talk about things. And then we have our school speakers, so Teddy sort of is in charge of that, and then there are other people below him that work underneath him. And we have our media team, which is a guy called Liam Whitten, who does all our media stuff. And everybody that works for that organisation and the work ethic they have and just how committed they are to the cause, means that it's just excellent. I mean, the amount of work that Liam puts in is the social media and sort of media person, and how he writes stuff and how he corrects things for me constantly, because my grammar isn't always great, and he's just very, very quick at doing that and having things sorted, but you don't, when I go over to England, the same happens to myself. You had asked me about coming to my office. I work from home. So my office would have been the kitchen. But when you go over to the offices in London, and the guys who are working there, I mean, we would have our staff meeting and then go out for staff drinks afterwards. You go out for a couple of pints. Those guys will go back to work afterwards. There will be people still in that office at 9 o'clock at night working and stuff, and not because, well, sometimes because they have to be there, but not always because they have to be there, but because they want to be there. It's the same for me working from home. If something pops up on my radar at 10:30 or 12 o'clock at night, it's like, I'm going to write something about it there and then. Whereas if I was in any other job, I might be like, no, I'll leave that until I get into work tomorrow. But for me, it's about, this means something to me, so I'm going to do something about it. So I think you actually coming across it more and seeing it more is because of that very high standard of people that the Humanists UK have working for them, and how dedicated they are to doing the work, and how much work they put in, and how much media attention that gets. I mean, even just the other week, although this didn't get picked up very much by the media, our pastoral care team, which is headed by, well, Teddy's the oversees it, but it's headed by a guy called Simon O'Donoghue. He has been working with a retired Met police officer in order to have the pastoral care team available for emergency events. So like the likes of what happened in Manchester or London, with terrorism acts, or even, in actual fact, we started to work around this because of the tower burning, what's called Grenfell Tower, and how could, because we felt as humanists we should be doing something to support these people. But what can we do? How do we make sure that we have we could just get individuals to start going up and offering their services, but that's not the way to do it. You need to be very sort of like, here's what our organisation, this is how we can go out and do this and approach these topics from an organisational point of view. And again, that's another thing which is to the benefit of Humanists UK, is that we're really organised. We really know what we're doing. We have our plans set out for 3 and 5 years ahead. We know where we're going with stuff. So that's probably why, at least in the UK, maybe yourself and other people are saying, I'm starting to notice this sort of humanism thing more. It's because we're working our asses off 24/7.
Just for me, it was more like I sort of heard the term mentioned in school, like very vaguely, briefly, and then...
What school did you go to?
Sullivan.
Right, okay. Over in Hollywood. Yeah.
And then sort of just in the last year or so, it's just sort of popped up. I saw the case when you sending the books out, and then obviously the fantastic reaction and promotion from the Reverend McElveen.
Yeah.
And then the humanist wedding that
Yeah.
took place last month, and it's just sort of like, I don't know, I feel like it's just permeating the culture, and maybe it's
Yeah.
not because it's being adopted by more people, it's maybe just that the idea is sort of starting to trickle into people's minds a little bit more, and it's maybe becoming less of a radical idea.
Well, it's not really a radical an idea. I think
Well,
some people
no,
think it is.
there's a lot of ideas
Yeah,
that are
Yeah,
considered
yeah.
radical in the world.
I get that. Well, I think without sort of blowing our own trumpet as Northern Ireland Humanists, it's because of the work that we've been putting in as well. You know, I mean, that sort of the couple, Laura and Ewan. I mean, Laura's a friend of mine. Laura come to me and said, "Boy, do you think there's you know, a celebrant that can do my wedding?" I was like, "I'm sure there is. Do you think you take a court case for us?" You know, it's like it's that's the sort of work that, I mean, I go out every day and find people who are going to make changes, but also those changes mean, you know, media attention for what we're doing, and that's all good because, I mean, at the minute we're as far as numbers go, we're still quite small in Northern Ireland. I mean, we've gone from having around about before we set up, there was probably, I think, about 350 members and supporters. So that would be people who had Northern Ireland postcodes, who were members of the British Humanist Association at that time, Humanist UK. And what I had said is that I wanted to have 1,120 members by 2019, 3 years. And as of a few nights ago, we had 1,199, I think it was. You know, so we've managed to get our membership and supporters growth up, which has been half the time that I said it would take to do that. And that really is because of the cases we take, the work that we're doing in schools, the work we're doing in pastoral care, our constant sort of notifications on Facebook and putting information out there. And also, it's not just to do with the simple fact that we're blogging about it or posting about it or having that media attention. It's because people are actually going, here's an organisation who are fighting for my rights. You know, here's an organisation who are not out there just slagging off religion, but are actually trying to make a change when it comes to the non-religious perspective on things. It's too easy for us to complain about what the religious organisations are doing, but then not offer anything better. No. You know, so we offer as much as we can to our members and supporters. We offer as much as we can to the public. Our pastoral care team, doesn't matter if you're religious or not, doesn't matter if you're a member or not, we will still come and see you. You know, we would never put anybody off because they're not a member, or because they're not from the humanist community, if you want to say that. And yeah, we're proactive, and I think proactive in the best possible way, and I think that people really appreciate that. They come across and go, "Oh, you guys are actually doing something. You're not just a talking shop." Because I think for too long, that is what has happened in Northern Ireland. There are, as I say, a couple of other humanist organisations that were really just talking shops. You know, you go to their monthly meetings, you sit there. It's an older sort of generation of people that would be there. They lecture you and then you leave. You know, and in actual fact, when I spoke to sort of more young people, they had said, "Well, we'd been to the meetings, but you know, nobody ever really spoke to us or interacted with us, and we felt it was a bit of a lecture and didn't really enjoy it." And in actual fact, again, around about 4 years ago, we started doing these things called secular brunch, which is a brunch on a Sunday once a month in the Mac. And it started off somewhere else, but it grew to having it in the Mac. And really, it's just to come, sit, eat and drink food and chat with each other. There's no format to it. There's no lecture, and there's nobody who sort of runs it or anything. It's just like these things happen, and we've expanded those now to have 5 or 6 of them throughout Northern Ireland. We've one in Bangor, one in Larne, one in Ballymena, Armagh. Trying to get the one in Derry sorted out again, and one in Belfast.
Those are shocking places for there to be a humanist branch.
The Bangor one had, I think 12 or 15 people at the very first one the other week. I was in the town hall, and everybody I was actually over in London at the international conference, but you know, it looked like a really good turnout and everybody was happy. So the Larne one, it doesn't have a massive turnout each month, but you know, people are happy that it's going on there. You know, the Belfast one, at one of the brunches quite recently, we had 45 people at it. You know, that started off with 6 of us sitting drinking coffee. You know, so and everybody seems to enjoy it. Some people have said to us, "What's the format?" sit down, enjoy yourself, chat to some people, and I think that that sort of works for people, and there's a wide group of people there, both male, female, young, old, different social backgrounds, so I think as far as Northern Ireland goes and humanism goes, we're capturing audiences from right across the spectrum, which is really good. I mean, if you look at our analytics on Facebook, a lot of people are really shocked, because any non-religious group, you tend to find that it's a vast majority men that are engaged in it and engaged in posts and who are the fans of that organisation. Okay. Ours are actually, when I looked at it the other night, just very slightly more women engaged in everything. So it's really, really good to see. It's like, I think that might be because...
Why do you think that is?
I think, I don't know 100% why that is, but I think it's because of our stance on abortion. I think it's because of our constant sort of campaigning and pushing on that. I think that might be why. Okay. And also because again, this is strange. We put up a post that was like International Feline Day or something. So we put up a quote by Terry Pratchett, which was, in ancient times, cats used to think that cats thought that cats were promoted as gods. Cats still think they're gods. It's a silly quote and an image with it, and it was just like those sort of nice quotes and nice things seem to attract more female attention than male attention. So if we were doing angry memes, slating religion constantly, we would probably have more men involved. But because in actual fact we're not interested in doing that, and we want to make a change, and humanism is about trying to be as nice as you can to people, unless they've got really bad ideas. And that's one of our quotes as well. Stand up for good. Support good ideas, stand up against bad ideas. So we're very vocal about bad ideas, but at the same time we'll support really good ideas, and I think that gets us more women are like, oh, these guys are kind of nice. I'm non-religious, and I want to be able to support a group, therefore I'll support this group, rather than some religion bashing atheist group that come across very aggressive. So I think that might be why. Not sure.
So in the grand scheme of things, you said you have like 3-5 year plans.
Yeah.
Like, what is the ultimate goal?
World domination.
Okay, so like slavery world domination, or just sort of passive world domination?
No.
Or
okay, so our campaigns kind of change depending on what is being brought to you. What we would like to see in Northern Ireland is decriminalisation of abortion. And now that is something that we work on with the likes of Alliance for Choice, Feminist Network. There are other organisations involved in that, and we are part of the Trust Women Coalition to try and make a change in that. But that is as far as a campaign that we're involved in. With other organisations that we don't take the lead on, is probably the most important one, at least to me at the minute, and probably the most important one to wider society in Northern Ireland, because there are women here being prosecuted for buying abortion pills, for taking abortion pills, and that needs to be treated as a medical issue rather than a justice issue, rather than justice, and it's the only one of our campaigns that makes me, I don't want to say angry, but at least sad. I'm going, this is not right. This is not good. The other ones obviously are, we want to see equality in marriage. We are about to start campaigning on a thing called Let Pupils Choose, which is to allow school pupils to decide whether they take part in collective acts of worship or not, because at the minute they have to have their parents opt them out. There's one I can't really mention actually, so I'm not going to mention that one. We're obviously still campaigning on the humanist marriage side of things. And another thing that there's another couple of things that we really want to make a change on. One which is very much Northern Ireland Humanists focused, us leading the campaign on that, which is to change the religious education curriculum in Northern Ireland, because at the minute it is the curriculum is written by the four main churches, so it's discriminatory at that level. There's very little on the syllabus other than Christianity, a couple of sort of modules when you get the GCSE level on Christianity and Islam. we have approached both CCA and the Department of Education and give our recommendations when they ask for recommendations about what should change in the syllabus. In actual fact, the syllabus that came out then a couple of months ago is exactly the same as it was 5 years ago when they put it out. They haven't changed anything on it, literally nothing.
Well, I remember I personally had to do short course religious studies at GCSE. There was, I think, as you said, your parents can opt you out, but it was just everyone was forced to.
Yeah.
I say forced, it was a really, really easy GCSE to get.
That generally is the argument that people use. And I mean, the thing is, look, the simple, there's two issues here with the opt-out. One is that there's no provision for students when they opt out. So they're sent to like the principal's office, which seems like that's like you'd be bad, you've done something wrong. Or they're told to sit at the back of the room and put their headphones in. That's not a provision for them. So that's one issue. The other one is the simple fact that there is an opt-out, the ability to opt out, means that there must be something wrong with the course. So what I would like to see is a very inclusive religious education course, one that includes all major world religions, one that discusses them historically rather than confessionally, or trying to turn people into Christians or Jews or Muslims, but one talks about what they actually mean as religions, maybe what their sort of holidays are, what do they mean, and the historical perspective of it. And if I saw a religious education course like that also included non-religious worldviews, I would say that is a good thing for society as a whole, understanding each other, rather than these sort of divisions. So I would like to see there being no opt-out once there was, a very inclusive, religious education syllabus. But at the minute there isn't, and
people don't really get to opt out of maths.
No. The other thing is it's not inspected. It's not written by education professionals. It's the only GCSE in Northern Ireland. Sorry, it's the only part of the curriculum in Northern Ireland that isn't written by education professionals. What is that all about? How can we even? I mean, I know people who have been who've worked within CCA and worked here in Queen's and written about religious education. There's somebody in Queen's at the minute who still writes and helps write the religious education. There's somebody who's retired who I met today who's also in the interfaith forum, and we all agree that the way it's the religious education system in Northern Ireland is written and is put out and is inspected is wrong, totally wrong. So that's something that we are working on, and we are trying to decide at the minute what way we want to tackle that, because we took a case in England over the GCSE curriculum. We won that case in England. They didn't take heed of that case when we went to see the Department of Education here in Northern Ireland, and we're sort of trying to figure out ourselves whether we want to tackle this one thing on the GCSE, or whether we want to look at it as a wider thing, that we need to change the whole way the syllabus is written and the curriculum is written. And I think that is the way we're going to go about it, but that means a hell of a lot more work. So because we have so much on our plate, and just me working over here, we're biding our time, and we will tackle that in time.
Well, you'd rather do it right.
Always the way.
Yeah, especially if people are going to be critical and.
Oh, they'll be critical. I mean, the thing is, when we set out to do something and we decide to do it, we do it right. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we want to get it right, and the other one is that we always know that we're being scrutinised by everybody else. That's why our training for our celebrants, our pastoral care, our school speakers is better than anywhere else you'll get in any sort of religious body. Because we cannot drop the ball. The minute we drop the ball, the Church of England will be on our back. So something like that, or the DUP or Reverend McElveen. So yeah, that's where we're at.
I just wanted to finish then with a slightly more maybe spiritual question, if you will. So personally, I'm not at the point where I can conclusively say I don't think there's a God.
Okay.
I'm not sure what I believe in. I'd probably say I'm a seeker at the moment.
Right, okay.
I don't know if that's a reasonable definition, but that's kind of like how I'm sort of looking for something that I think appeals to me. And it
Okay.
might be that I find that nothing does and that I end up being an atheist. But there's one particular actually project that just gives me that tiniest bit of doubt about it, is a thing called the Global Consciousness Project. So they started by setting up a whole lot of random number machines, random number generators, and trying to figure out, it was like completely innocuous, just trying to see if there was a pattern in the random numbers that this machine was generating. And eventually they ended up setting up hundreds of them all around the world and tracking, like on a sort of live basis, if there is correlation in the random numbers. And they started to try and map it to world events, particularly traumatic world events. And there's a really odd correlation. And they don't draw causation, neither do I. But there's a really odd correlation between the spikes in the sort of seeming randomness becoming slightly less random, and like earthquakes, like big world events, and then...
I mean, there's massive challenges for this, because if you're actually out looking for...
But that's the project, this is why I'm quite willing to listen to it, is because they didn't start with this goal. It just sort of started as this one physics student, like looking for patterns in a randomness, and it's sort of grown and grown and grown.
The thing is, we're humans. We look for patterns. We look for patterns in the sky that's why people rain dance. That's one day a guy started dancing in his garden, and it started raining, and therefore after that they thought, well, this is what you do in order to get rain. If you look for patterns, you will find them.
Anyway, so I'm not saying there's causation, but there's one event actually that gave them possibly like the most like mind-blowing thing that I have ever like witnessed or like looked at. It was on September 11th, 2001. The correlation with all the random number generators went through the roof. And took about 3 days to come back down to being back where they expected. And again, they're not saying that there's anything there. But basically my point is, I'm not at somewhere where I can be like, I don't think there's anything greater than humanity out there. And I was essentially wondering, where was there like a specific moment for you that you went...
There wasn't a specific moment, but I've certainly went through what you're talking about. Years ago, I read a book, which I kind of advise you to at least read the first few paragraphs, called The Bible Code.
Okay.
Which was a book about how this guy had found all these hidden things in the Bible Code, events that had happened, I think it was like the murder of somebody from a foreign government, and who had actually carried it out, and he'd find all these different things in the Bible, and I'm reading it, made me go, that's a bit scary, these things seem to be true. And I've done the whole conspiracy thing and thought, 9/11, whatever, I've been there and done that. I think it was my skepticism that started to make a difference to me in how I view these things. First of all, the Bible Code and the way that this guy had been relating the Bible Code, and finding out these things, could be done to any book. Could be done, and they did it with Moby Dick and found exactly the same results. If you go out and you're trying to find something, if you're really, really dedicated to finding something, you will find it, even if it's not there. That seems to be very true. And when it comes to like the 9/11 conspiracies, I can remember watching.
This isn't even like 9/11 conspiracy. It's more to do with like the global trauma of like that's the kind of theory anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, maybe I can't say, you can't prove a negative.
Yeah.
I can't prove that Santa Claus doesn't exist. And so I understand that maybe there is something else out there. At the minute, there's no evidence for it that I can see. So I wouldn't ever sort of adhere or go with something without there being decent evidence for it. You know what I mean? When I say decent, I mean overwhelming evidence.
They have a very, very good motto. Actually, I quite enjoy it, and it's that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Yeah.
And they're like I said, they're not saying that this is definitely anything yet.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there with all their data and just being like, yeah, let's just keep compiling.
Yeah, I mean, what I would do in something like that, in the case of the guy, is find out exactly who's behind it, exactly who set up the random number generators, who they actually are, and what they've done before. Anyway,
On that note,
yes, it was lovely to do the interview, lovely to meet you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoy the show, you can share us on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, whatever you fancy. Later in the week, we've got another episode where we'll be talking to Bill Duff about all the reasons behind Brexit. And he offers some pretty interesting interpretations that I honestly hadn't considered. So if you're interested in Brexit, make sure you tune in. Until next time, bye.